Welcome to Fashion Reverie Talks. I am Tijana Ibrahimovic.
I am William Gooch, filling in for Cicely Daniels.
Fashion Reverie takes you from the front lines of fashion to the front row.
All of our Fashion Reverie Talk segments are based on published content found on fashionreverie.com.
So remember, if you want more information on the segments, go to fashionreverie.com, and to like these episodes, go to YouTube and subscribe.
In this episode, we're happy to have Fashion Reverie Associate Editor Chris Fraser, who will discuss some of his favorite shows from New York Fashion Week. And I will also talk about my experience with New York Fashion Week. So let's start with fashion news. All of our news segments are based on the fashion news alerts found on fashionreverie.com.
Okay, let's jump into the current events in fashion. I'm going to start off with Margot Robbie's new job. So Chanel number 5 has a not so new celebrity face, Margot Robbie. She has been their brand ambassador for Chanel number 5 since 2018, but she will currently be representing the new iconic fragrance. So she is ideal for this job because we all see her as this icon of femininity, and especially of someone that you do want to know what scent she's using. So she will kick off the latest fragrance just in time for the holiday season in October. So the first campaign will be featuring her, and it will hit the markets in October.
So, Tijana, do you think she's going to bring a little bit of that Barbie magic to this new role as the face of Chanel? I don't know if Barbie and Chanel go together, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, both are kind of staples of femininity and, fashion and fashion forwardness. So I think it's good. It's a good combo.
Well, we have some unfortunate news. Peter Nygard, the big fashion mogul, Canadian fashion mogul, has been sentenced to 11 years in prison for sexual assault against 4 women and 1 young girl. Nygard could be released early because he's kind of served some time in his pretrial custody. So he may get 4 years taken off of his sentencing, but that's yet to be known. And it's such a tragedy because, Peter Nygard is 83 years old. People, investigative teams have been after him for about 15 years for at that time, alleged sexual molestation. But they finally did catch him and sentence him. And, Ontario Superior Court Justice Robert Goldstein said that Nygard was a Canadian success story gone very wrong, and that he used his power and wealth to lure young women into becoming his victims. And it's very sad, Some of these assaults go back all the way back to 1988 up until 2005, and he would lure young girls and women to his home in promise of a modeling career or some type of opportunities in fashion. And when they wouldn't really submit on their own to his sexual advances, he would drug them. So this is a really, really, really big tragedy. And, the man is worth about $620 million. At one time, he was worth that amount. And he had 170 namesake stores in the US and Canada. So it's all kind of come crumbling down. So here we are, yet another sexual assault scandal. What do you think, Tijana?
I mean, he spent 80 years enjoying himself. So it's
if you want to call that enjoying himself.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, he was doing whatever he wanted. It took a really long time to punish him for his crimes. Imagine how many victims that is.
Yeah, he really was a high profile fashion guy. There was a Nygard store right off of Times Square at one time in New York City. And he was known for hanging out with politicians and celebrities. He even was a friend to Queen Elizabeth II. He used to have dinners with her and being honored by her. So it's a real kind of operatic level downfall,
Yeah.
I guess his Achilles heel is that he couldn't keep his hand off of young women.
In any way he could, yes. Well, we do have a little bit more of a positive
yes, let's end on a positive note.
So Macy's is attempting to reimagine its private brands, and its new menswear brand, Mode of One, includes everyday essentials and statement designs created with a focus on fits and proportions. So the collection is inspired by sports, music, technology, and street style. And for this new collection, Macy's collaborated with graphic designer Tyrell Waiters and Weegee Theodore, the founder of the Brooklyn Circus. And theater style, this inaugural collection, Mode of One's, features over 140 items. It includes hoodies, graphic tees, cargo pants, and prices range from about $25 to $150-ish, and all kinds of sizes. So there's a little bit of something for everyone. And so Mode of One, according to Senior Vice President and Head of Private Brands at Macy's, represents their commitment to offering contemporary menswear that celebrates the individuality of a modern man.
Tijana, Macy's really has a huge array of what we used to call private labeling, where they would have their own brands and be designed by individual designers. And so this is just another edition of that. And it's very affordable, which makes it accessible to a lot of people. I looked at some of the pieces. They're actually quite nice. And, the collection is kind of inspired by streetwear, technology, music. And I think it's going to be a big hit for young consumers. Some of the pieces are a little out of my age demographic, but, since I do love Macy's, I'm going to go over there and buy something.
That's good. I hope.
Okay, everyone, this is the end of our fashion news segment. And remember, if you want more information about these segments, go to fashionreverie.com. Well, welcome back, viewers. Now, we are joined by our associate fashion editor, Kristopher Fraser. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Gooch.
Now, Kristopher, we know you are the man about town when it comes to New York Fashion Week. You get more invitations than your boss to show. But we want to talk about your impression of New York Fashion Week, our spring 2025 season, which just ended this past Wednesday. So just give us a very brief general opinion of New York Fashion Week.
This season, New York Fashion Week lost its central venue, but I think that actually left designers a lot more room to play with their visions of what they wanted, with their ability to select their own space.
I agree.
New York Fashion Week has been getting a lot of criticism if it still has the same flair it used to, but you saw a lot of designers doing a lot of really great things. Tommy Hilfiger had a show on the Staten Island Ferry. Frederick Anderson rented the Opera House in Midtown for his runway shows, and these designers were doing great shows. So, I think New York Fashion Week this season really did its best to reject that label of, oh, we're over.
Yeah. Now, when you say they lost their venue, you're talking about Spring Studios, correct?
Well, last season, as of last February, there was supposed to be a new central venue, Starrett Leahy, the studios there.
Oh, but Starrett Lehigh, right? Yeah, but that venue didn't work out that well.
That venue did not work out that well, and you know what? people were not even sad about it because it was just so far away from everything.
That's right.
So even though there was we missed the convenience of the central venue, the one they tried to give us was not that convenient. People were really happier running around town for runway shows than being stuck over there.
Right, that's true. So, Kristopher, let's start with one of Fashion Reverie's favorites, Frederick Anderson. Let's start with him because I know you went to his show.
Yes.
I want your opinion. And you know, me and Freddie have a long history. We're both from North Carolina, and I've known Freddie since he was 16. Can you believe it?
Yeah, weren't you guys dancers together?
We were in a regional, well, most people don't know my little background. I was a ballet dancer prior to working in fashion. And me and Freddie were in a small civic ballet company in North Carolina. I was a little bit older than he was, but he was 16. So I've known him for a really long time. And we kind of acquainted ourselves with each other in New York. And both of us had left the dance world, and he was working as a designer and I was working as a fashion editor. So we have a long history. So I love his shows. I went last February to his show, and every season I think it gets a little bit better and It gets a little bit more focused and his collections get a little bit more cohesive. But that's just, the big boss's opinion. So I want your opinion, Kristopher. This is about you.
I saw Frederick after his show, and I told him that this was his absolute best collection to date, and he said he felt the same way about it too. And one thing I really like about Frederick and his approach to design is, and you see it when you're at his shows with his audience, he really understands his consumer. They're the girls on the Upper East Side. They're the girls in the Hamptons. They're the girls going to travel to resorts in the summer. They're in Saint-Tropez. They're in St. Bart's. He knows what those girls want, and he understands how they dress. And it really reflects in his clothes. And this year, I know he's been focusing a lot more on growing his retail presence. He has picked up Saks Fifth Avenue as a partner. He's opened his own brick and mortar store. And with that elevation of his approach to business, you also see that elevation in his approach to design. Silhouettes were tighter. Silhouettes were cleaner. Fabrics were more elevated. And things like that in terms of, trying to take his brand to that next level.
And what was the inspiration or theme of this collection?
It seemed like he was going for, with Spring Summer, it seemed like he was going for really thinking about that girl that's jet setting. Yeah. Like, where's she going to be next? Like, it's that kind of girl that will dress up to get on the plane. And then she's going to need her change of clothes for the Michelin star restaurant she's going to. Then she's going to need her next change of clothes for the ballroom at the resort that night.
So in a way, he dressed her at every juncture of her day.
Yes, it's really wardrobe styling.
Right. So it's to me, his clothes look like a lifestyle.
Absolutely.
Collection, like what Ralph Lauren does so beautifully and consistently. He is developing into a lifestyle brand. Do you agree or disagree?
100% agree, because these girls he has as customers, they are living that life.
Right.
Like, some of them have private jets, some of them have second homes, and some of them may even be as wealthy to have private islands. They're jet setting off to the Mediterranean. They're at the Amalfi Coast.
So would you say this is the updated version of the Ladies Who Lunch?
100%.
But they don't just lunch in New York. They lunch all over the world.
Oh, they're all over the world, honey. They're sipping their limoncello in the Amalfi Coast. They're with their margaritas in St. Bart's. They're on someone's yacht in Saint-Tropez. Must be nice.
Yes, it must be nice. Okay, let's go to Custo Barcelona, one of my favorite brands, and a show that I usually attend. I didn't go this season, but I usually attend every season. And I just love what Dalmo Custo has been doing for so long. So, okay, take it away, Kristopher. Custo Barcelona.
Ahead of the show, one of the things I've been seeing a lot in the fashion media sphere and hearing other editors and stylists talk about is the return of boho chic. For those of you who are fans of Rachel Zoe and remember the Rachel Zoe project era, that was how she always described her whole style, the whole boho chic aesthetic, like taking the bohemian and trying to elevate it, making it very Orange County, making it very West Village. you saw a lot of that with Custo Barcelona's collection this season, and it still had that very much that brand DNA of the creative and the colorful and the patterns. And I think this could be potentially a really strong retail moment for the brand with the boho.
Which they need.
Yes.
Because, you know, they've been in competition forever with
Desigual.
Desigual, right. And Desigual stole a lot of their thunder 6-7 years ago and kind of has continued on their trajectory. So you think this is maybe another shining moment for them?
Absolutely, I think it could be. With so many celebrities hopping on the boho chic trend right now, too. You see Gigi Hadid doing it. You see Bella Hadid doing it. You see Julia Fox doing it when she isn't in one of her crazy avant-garde style outfits. Boho chic's toned down for her. But with a lot of the it girls hopping on the boho chic trend and that aesthetic having such a moment right now, this was the perfect timing for that collection if they're trying to get customers back on board that they may have lost to other brands or people that used to shop them back in the day that may have just not been shopping them as much lately. And
now, I want your opinion, Kristopher. When I looked at the collection, you know, Custo Barcelona was known for putting crazy colors and patterns together and a lot of bold colors. And sometimes the bold colors didn't necessarily mesh or go well together. But this collection looked a little bit more cohesive and toned down with the colors. You know, there were a lot more neutral tones in this collection. What is your opinion, Kristopher? That's my opinion. What's yours?
I think as he's looking for more sellability,
more retail value, yes.
He's found that balance between, you know, still having a lot of the color, but maybe toning it down by putting it on a more neutral palette. So it's a little bit more approachable for your average shopper, but it still has that brand DNA because, you know, he's not doing quiet luxury. That's not his approach to things. So even though he's like toned it down a little bit, it still very much has that Custo Barcelona flair. Like it might be a white dress, but it still has tons of colorful trim. It might be a white t-shirt, but it has a bold graphic on it.
Okay, great. Now, Kristopher, let's talk about this brand that you introduced me to that I had never heard of, and I might be pronouncing it wrong, so help me. Bad Bench Tong Tong.
Yeah, Bad Bench Tong Tong.
Okay, all right. Say that again.
Bad Bench Tong Tong.
Bench, B-I-N-C-H, right? And when I looked at your article and I looked at some of the images, very architectural, very sculptural, very, I don't want to call it avant-garde, but definitely
very much describes the brand as avant-garde.
Fashion next. Definitely next. So, take it, Kristopher.
So the designer Terrence Zhao actually very much describes the brand as avant-garde, actually. His whole approach to things is he's very much inspired by the extraterrestrial. So he's like trying to think of how aliens that would shop couture if they got to Earth, what they would wear, which I know sounds so out there, but he very much embraces the avant-garde. For him right now, at least, things aren't so much as about retail. He's still trying to treat this as more of like an art meets fashion situation. So there's a lot of very architectural structured gowns. The first two looks when the show started were these women in like these like cat suits encased in these giant gowns that looked like oversized tulips. And he held a show at a church and it had a very ritualistic aspect to it with the music and everything and like the sort of like interpretive dance. It almost seemed like he was doing a devised theater piece in combination with the runway show.
So it almost was like performance art in a sense.
Yeah, very much so.
Okay. Now, you know, William Gooch loves anything that has some theater and performance to it. So I wish I'd had the opportunity to go to the show. Well, Kristopher, thank you so much for your review, for your really studied opinion. And viewers, please go to fashionreverie.com to get more detail about these designers and read more of Kristopher's reviews. Thank you, Kristopher.
You're welcome, Gooch.
So today we have a special honor to have our editor-in-chief, William Gooch, discuss the latest season of New York Fashion Week. So welcome, Mr. Gooch, to Fashion Reverie Talks.
Well, I've been doing double duty today because unfortunately, our wonderful co-host, Cicely Daniels, could not be for our first season back. And for those, I think we should share with our viewers, Tijana, Cicely's in a Broadway show. The revival of Once Upon a Mattress, and she's in the cast of that, which is an ongoing Broadway show right now. And she's in that cast, and she's understudying one of the leads.
Oh, amazing.
Cast. So we're so proud of her, and we're so happy that she is in Once Upon a Mattress. And for those who don't remember, Sarah Jessica Parker was in the 1999 revival. So the show is back, starring Sutton Foster, who I love. So unfortunately, Cicely couldn't be here today, so I'm doing double duty. I'm doing the best I can. I hope I'm not doing so bad.
I think you're doing great. Who's a better person than you to talk about New York Fashion Week? Besides Kristopher Fraser.
Yes, well, Kristopher did a great job. Okay, now let's talk about New York Fashion Week. What is the state of New York Fashion Week? So there's been so many articles about New York Fashion Week, how it isn't like it was at Bryant Park. It wasn't like it is at Lincoln Center. It wasn't even like it was at Clarkson Street. So as we all know, and Kristopher discussed it briefly, New York Fashion Week no longer has a stable one venue. So you are running everywhere to the shows. I think I spent way over $100 and some in cabs and Ubers going to shows and walking up all those stairs in the subway, because you're literally running back and forth all over the city all day long. So that's very exhausting. So I would hope that the CFDA would try to at least get some type of consistent location. That is my really one major complaint. But other than that, I felt a lot of energy this season as compared to what we saw in February of 2024. People were smiling, they were happy. There were far fewer influencers at the shows, which many of us don't care for, myself included, unless they're really, really good influencers, top influencers. And there was a really wonderful, jovial spirit. The CFDA is trying some new things to really get more attention on retail, shopping, the fashion industry at large, and particularly New York Fashion Week. So they launched a free live screening of certain shows at Rockefeller Center ice rink. So you could go to the ice rink at Rockefeller Center. It was free. You could watch the live streaming of the shows like Oscar de la Renta, Carolina Herrera, Ralph Lauren, a lot of the big brands. If you didn't get tickets, if you couldn't afford to buy tickets, or you were not on the press list, you could actually have a wonderful experience and watch it live at Rockefeller Center. So that was something they were doing to bring attention back to New York Fashion Week. The verdict is still out on whether that worked, but I think it's a very valid effort. And the New York Fashion, the CFDA did something that they normally don't do, and I think it was an incredible move. We know, Tijana, me and you discussed this offline and in our private lives, that we're in an election year. And this election is a very important election. It's all about our freedom. And the CFDA actually sponsored a political march. Who would think a political march around fashion? Who would think that would actually be something they would do? But if you think about it, to quote Billy D. Williams from the movie Mahogany, everything is political. So fashion is also political. When you think about the clothes that we wear, a lot of times they're reflecting political movements. The flower powers of the hippies in the 60s, the Black Power movement of the 60s, the women's movement of the 60s and 70s, the punk movement of the 70s and the 80s that originated in Britain. All those things reflect politics and culture and how we see ourselves. So this year, the CFDA had a march called Fashion for Our Future, which started from Herald Square on the first day of Fashion Week and went all the way up to Rockefeller Center to launch the live streaming. And it was a march for our freedom, a march for our creativity. And I think they're moving in the right direction with trying to get consumers and the average individual to understand that fashion is not separate from the way that you live. It's a part of the way that you live. It's a part of your life. And since it is that, it's also political. So that is one thing that was kind of different about this fashion week.
Well, I do like the idea of them incorporating the screen on the ice ring in Rockefeller. I think that's a great way to include people that are not part of the industry as well, or that are just tourists visiting our city. And as far as politics, I will leave it out. Because I do think that some things should be separated, but okay. However, there is another topic that you touched upon, which is the influencers. So that you're such a big fan of. So tell me, what do you think?
This last season, I was really worn out by the influencers.
Is influencing over? I mean, do they still have the effect as they did in the last couple of years? Or is it true that they truly replaced fashion industry professionals, or they're gone?
They're not gone. They have been more integrated into the rest of the fashion audience at the shows. So they are no longer front and center. Some of the big ones that have, 10 million followers are still in the front row. But the industry is adjusting its position with influencers. And I think they're starting to realize, Ralph Lauren said last February, he didn't want any more influencers at his shows. He was really not a fan.
Now, why is that? Is it that they don't know how to behave, or what is the issue with the influencers?
I can't speak for why Ralph Lauren said that. His show was in the Hamptons. And of course, I was not at his show. So maybe there were influencers there. I don't know. But I do know that the industry's had a lot of challenges with them because they kind of promise things that they don't deliver. So they have this huge, audience on Instagram and TikTok, and brands collaborate with them. And the brands are not getting back what they're putting in. So they will do a collaboration with an influencer, hoping that that will somehow turn into sales. And they're seeing that that's not really happening as much as it once was. And I don't think it was ever happening as much as people wanted it to happen. So what I saw this season was far less influencers. Now, you may ask, well, William, how can you tell they're an influencer? Now, we always knew who they were because they would come in, they weren't friendly, they wouldn't talk to anybody, they would go to their seat, and they would take pictures of themselves throughout the entire show. They might take one or two pictures of the runway. They didn't even look at the collections. They were basically promoting themselves. I saw far less of that. I saw a lot of people making videos and taking pictures of the collections. And I saw very few people wrapped up in their own world, which is a good thing. So I don't think they're gone. Lauren, Louis Pierre, one of our fashion editors at Fashion Reverie, did a wonderful article about influencers that kind of was a part of our pre-Fashion Week coverage, asking if their time has come and gone. I don't think it's come and gone. I just think they're being put in their proper place as a part of a larger picture of marketing fashion. So where editors and stylists and other fashion industry professionals were being pushed aside for the influencers, I think we're now being moved more back toward the center. Will it be like it was at the fashion weeks of yore, Bryant Park, New York Fashion Week? Those days are never coming back. So I think we're moving toward a new way of looking at marketing, which is a combination of different elements to help get consumers interested in dressing again. You know, Tijana, since the pandemic, a lot of people are still working from home. So people don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of clothes anymore. You know, you work from home, right. Whether you're working hybrid, whether you're going to the office a couple of days and working from home, you know, a couple of days, or you're working from home completely. So retail is still a little down because people just don't need to buy a lot of clothes. So the fashion industry is trying different things to try to get people interested again in buying clothes and expressing themselves through fashion. And all these things that the CFDA is doing is leading toward that goal of getting people excited about fashion again.
What do you think there are some other ways that New York Fashion Week can be improved?
Well, Lord knows getting a main venue would help a whole lot. And getting the show, and if they even get a main venue, is making sure that the designers who are not showing at that venue are showing near that venue. Because honestly, a lot of people don't go to the shows who get invited because you are worn out running to 8-9 shows a day all over the city. I mean, it's expensive and it's really tiring. So I think if the CFDA could get a main venue, that would help a lot. And I think they need to reach out to media outside of fashion. I mean, it used to be when Wendy Williams was on. You remember Wendy Williams, Tijana? She would have a whole fashion segment for a whole week. Nobody does it anymore. Tamron Hall may give a little press to it for one day. Sherry Shepard may say a little something. Oh, it's Fashion Week. But all those morning talk shows would have fashion on the whole week of New York Fashion Week. So I think the CFDA needs to reach out to mainstream media to try to get more coverage, to try to get more excitement. I think they should try to get a lot of the celebrities to try to come back. Some of them are still coming to the shows, but they just need to do something to get the audience excited. You know, last thing I'm going to say about this, one thing that did happen this year, we saw some brands show in New York that have never shown it before, European houses. Off-White, you know, Virgil Abloh's brand, although he's passed away and he has another creative director, they showed for the first time in New York. Alaya showed for the first time in New York at the Guggenheim, and I watched the show online. Gorgeous, stunning, beautiful. And a whole bunch of other brands, European brands, showed it for the first time. So other brands in other countries understand the importance of the New York market. The CFDA needs to find a way to get the consumer interested again in a new way. Can't be the old way. Sometimes the old ways don't work anymore.
So what are some of the shows that were your favorite?
I went to a show called Duder, which is a brand by a Haitian mother and daughter team. Stunning, gorgeous, accessible, very bold colors, very Caribbean style in nature. It was almost a resort collection. And they did something really interesting. It was done in the street, out on the street down in Soho, on Walker Street. It was right off of Walker Street. They did it. And they had something that you don't see much anymore. Male models and female models as couples walking together down the runway. Very sexy clothes, very sexy presence. Clothes were extremely well made. And they dressed their consumer at every juncture of their day if they were in the tropics, if they were on vacation. So you could find something from that collection to wear at every juncture of your day. Great collection, very well received. I loved it. And I got there late. I didn't have a seat, but I was able to stand on the fire escape and watch the collection.
That's great. Sounds like a fun show.
I also saw this show that I was not familiar with. I was invited by the wonderful Chris Constable, Rinshu. Wonderful collection, very minimalist, very typical minimalist Asian inspired collection. Some Asian silhouettes, some kind of Mao jacket like silhouettes, Mandarin jackets, but all neutral colors, black, white, off-white, a little bit of gray, but just gorgeous, beautiful clothes, well constructed, something that a lot of people would want to wear. And the production was just expert, really, really put together very well. And of course, I was excited because Beverly Johnson was in the audience and Billy Porter.
Oh, okay. If there is
but a beautiful,
promising brand.
Yeah. So those were two of my favorites.
That's great. Well, thank you, William, for sharing your thoughts on the New York Fashion Week 2024.
Thank you for having me. Well, viewers, that's it for this episode of Fashion Reverie Talks.
We would like to thank our Fashion Reverie Associate Editor, Kristopher Fraser, and Fashion Reverie Editor-in-Chief, William Gooch.
For more information on these and other stories, go to fashionreverie.com. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.